Call to order the regular Stokes County Commissioners meeting on Monday, February 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Join me in a word of prayer, please. Precious Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings you give us. Thank you for this county that you've blessed us with. May you be with us as we conduct the business of this county. Watch over, guide us, and give us a safe trip home. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I get approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No public comment. So we go to the commissioners and we'll start with you.
I'd just like to welcome everybody here and thank you for being here in person. And for those that are watching online, thanks for your participation as well. And I'd just like to take a moment to remember some families in our community that have had fires this past week. The Sheltons and the Southerns had a fire last night, and just some families that are dealing with that and all that brings. So we want to remember them in prayer, as well as a couple of losses in our community of deaths just this past week too. So just wish everybody a happy Valentine's this week, and that's all.
Wayne?
Just kind of reiterate a little bit what Mr. Cox said. It's great to see everybody and everybody watching the live stream. And yeah, a special prayer to a lot of people in our county tonight. There's a lot of sickness and death, and lots happened in our county in the last 2 weeks. And when you're in the fire department, you get to see a lot of it. And my heart goes out to a lot of these people tonight. So remember these folks in your prayers, and appreciate everybody being here.
Rick?
I'd like to welcome everybody also to the meeting. We really value the participation of our constituents here in the county as we try to do this job, and much appreciated.
Right.
Thank you. Welcome everybody, those of you in person, also in YouTube, and take it, especially for participating in local government. I think that means a lot to us, and it also means a lot to the community. Really, the only thing I really want to mention is every once in a while I get a few phone calls from King, or I get phone calls in that King area, and a lot of the complaints lately are infrastructure, especially the roads, about how traffic is not the same as what it used to be, and some of them I've heard turned into road rage, and so in taking the time to talk with them, and listening, and then referring them to the proper people with the state, and then also to the sheriff's office for road rage incidences to investigate. But so I was reading some of our emails on the Stokes County website, and I saw where the state of NCDOT, it's a transportation improvement program. Federal government mandates it be completed every 4 years, and then the state does it every 2 years. And from what I understand, it's in like 10-year increments. And so what I would like to remind everybody is now is the time, and I think that this body will do our due diligence as well to get with the King area especially, and see what we can do about where the projects are for these roads that supposedly, they are very, very congested. And I know they are, because I travel a lot too. But I just want to make sure, what projects in Stokes County are currently on that list for funding and when. And then I want to make sure that we encourage our citizens to either contact us or to contact there's a website, you can go on and fill out a form if you think it's a particular road or road system that you can go to and emphasize. And then if you actually want to go to a meeting, we're in Division 9 in Winston-Salem. So March 3rd through 7th from 8 to 5, you can go anytime in between there. They will be there, and the office is at 375 Silas Creek Parkway. It's the North Carolina Department Division office. So to our citizens, please give your input. I mean, we like listening to you, hear your concerns as well, but it would help if we get on the front end with input with our roads here in Stokes County, because it's a long process. And then I ask our illustrious chair if any way that we can kind of get with the King area, because that's where we're seeing the growth and where I'm getting the complaints from the traffic, to make sure that we can help them if they've identified areas that they're putting in for, that I'd like to put our weight behind it as well. That's all I got.
Can I piggyback on that just a second? I do know from talking to a couple of the council members in King that they have tried to commission a traffic study with the DOT, and I think that's where they're at now. Is I don't know what DOT's timeline of getting that completed is, but they've asked for that because they know that there's problems in certain areas. But without a study from DOT and see what the recommendations are, and now they're just at DOT's mercy till they can get that study done. So
It's a slow process, so
Yes,
we
it
need
is.
to get on it.
But if we can throw our weight behind that, then and that would help expedite that process, then that would be a good idea.
That's all I got.
Yeah. Jeff?
I have no comments tonight, thank you.
Okay. Amber?
The only comment that I was going to share is that, as you know, Stokes County, along with Davie Construction, is working on the courthouse. They're doing the renovation and expansion of that building. And so on February 12th, so this Wednesday, the Stokes County Government Center, so the courthouse and all those offices, DSS, along with the Reagan building, will all be closed that day, just because we have to cut the water off to patch the new water lines into the system. So they'll be closed that day, but all other county offices will be open, and it's posted on our website and on Facebook if you want to know exactly which offices it pertains to. So.
And until today, I didn't know that the health department is on a separate valve, so they don't get the day off.
Yeah, that is true. And then it's planned opening for 10 a.m. on Thursday as well, unless something goes better or worse. So.
We might have a problem tomorrow with the weather.
They've rented tents. If you look, you can see the tents
Yeah.
out there. So we told them there wasn't an option. We've already canceled they've already canceled court and moved it around. So.
Right.
I'd like to welcome everybody also. I appreciate the ones that took time to come out and the ones that are viewing. We live in a great county, and I want to fuss at people a while. Keep the litter in your car till you get home. There's no reason to throw it out. I mean, I've seen, I don't know, I think it's an independent service, and the amount of trash they pick up in a period of time in a small city is unbelievable. And just keep it in your vehicle, because there is a lot of traffic. It's not only King. I've noticed a difference in Danbury. So I just want to warn that. And on the other, February the 1st, me and my wife got an invite and went to Virginia Fox opening of her Mayadan branch office. It is open 5 days a week. It's on 208 West Main Street, and it is staffed. So if you got any federal problems, they will take care of it, and we'll be happy to help you. It was a very interesting. I just want to touch on this briefly. I'm not going to get into it. You can hit me after. We met, and it was a weird story. We had name tags. And this young guy come up and says, "We got to be kin." His last name was Wood, and little did I know he was one of the people that Trump pardoned on January the 6th. He was there, and we had some interesting conversations. So that's all I got on that. Conflicts of interest. Before we move any further, does any board member have a conflict with any of the items on the agenda for tonight, or one that might be perceived as a conflict of interest?
No.
Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent.
Second.
I have
On
one
what?
question right quick.
Okay.
On that big budget amendment, or not big one, but that separate budget amendment in there, are we just adding $6,000 to an existing line of 4,500? Then I read the stuff afterwards, and it said about creating a new training line item for, what's the court assistant? Is that the name of it? Opioid, right?
Yeah, it's the one that's working for Judge Puckett and Judge Southern, the ARC coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just adding that $6,000 to the 4,500. I know the memo is a little bit confusing, but
Where's is that in the health department, that line item that exists already?
no, it's in the opioid budget.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is in the opioid budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because we were trying to split the expenses, if you remember, between the county and then the opioid department for that position.
Okay.
And so the county's taking on the bigger part right now, so we're trying to even it out. They didn't have any training budgeted for this, the ARC coordinator.
Okay.
And Judge Puckett requested that there be training added. So we're trying to add it to the opioid side of it to even it
Okay.
out a little bit.
Okay, that's all. That answers my question.
Okay, I had a motion, I had a second. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So that brings us to our information agenda, and River Street is here. Greg Coltrane, it's yours.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you guys letting me be here tonight. I didn't bring the cold weather with me, I promise. It always comes down to where I live from you guys, so y'all gotta close the back door.
I don't know why everybody's upset, it's winter.
I know, it's winter, right? That's how it goes.
Tired
Let's
of
see,
it.
if I just click this button,
Yeah, it should.
here we go, perfect. All right, so I wanted to provide you a few updates with regard to what has changed since the last time I was here. I think I was here in October. I love this too, by the way. This is wonderful here. I know it helps you guys a lot more, but I wouldn't have had you print these out if I had realized I was going to have this big screen here. So running through the projects, I'm going to kind of jump ahead on a few things because I moved some of my slides around, and actually they got them in the right order. So this is looking at our current River Street project for the North Carolina Great Grant that was awarded to us in 2022. And I asked our engineering group to go through the map and try to illustrate a little bit better, more clearly for you so you can see where the actual construction is underway. But basically the project passings in this was 1,301 residential and 18 businesses. It's 124.61 miles of proposed fiber routes. The award was for August 1st, 2022, and we're working really diligently to be under schedule to complete that by September 30th of this year, which is just around the corner. This year is already off to a great start and flying by. The total project at the time of the grant award was $6,526,631. Of that $4 million grant and a $1.2 million match from the county, and then River Street put up $1.2 million for that project as well. So these, I'm going to go through and provide you kind of a project by project update. The CAF 2 was our original Connect America Fund award here. That project is 99% complete. And I say 99% only because there are 2.8 miles left out of the 41 miles that we were to construct in that project. And we ran into a little bit of a delay because of some railroad permits. And but there's 10 customers in that last little loop of the 120 customers for that. And we should have this completed here relatively soon, within the next month or two. The RDOF award was the second award in the county that River Street received. And that project is about 47% complete. That's the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. We're currently under construction in the Lawsonville area, and the design and permitting in Oak Ridge and Pleasant View areas are in production. We were delayed quite a bit for splicing due to the resources. We pulled our splicers in multiple markets to head out to Western Carolina to help us restore our Barnersville and our Saluda networks that were almost completely demolished. And so that has been back on full speed. We've got all of our splicers back on point, so that's been taken care of. There's 166 of the 405 locations that have been passed with fiber, and we've completed 20.3 of the 73.42 route miles in that project. And then the NC Great Grant, which is the one I was illustrating just prior, was the third award, and that's the one that we're trying to get completed by the end of this year. There's 253 of the 1309 that have been passed, and 24.6 of the 124 plus route miles have been completed with this associated project. So quite happy about where we are, being on schedule and on time to get these projects done. Now I'll go through and break down these areas for you just a little bit to give you some visibility. The construction is in progress in the Oak Ridge and 2 Lawsonville areas that you can see illustrated by the little dots here on the map. There's 19 miles of construction that's been completed, and 2 of the 3 remote buildings have been placed while the 3rd one is currently being constructed and in process. So 142 passings are associated with this current build project. This is enveloped up inside of the updates I was just giving you. So when you look here, this is 65 great grant funded passings associated with the build plan route that's under construction, our great grant build route 1. And so that's covering the State Road 704 and the Sisk Road and part of a route that'll go down through Steel Road. But it'll interconnect all of the dots that you see there. And then the last one here is 77 grant-funded passings on Route 2. Well, I think they're combined here. So this is off of Lawsonville. We're running up into the, I guess that's Weldon Smith Road and Craddock Road in that particular area. Now, talking about what's next, currently there's 91 counties that have placed scope of work within the state broadband infrastructure program under the CAB 2.0. Stokes County is one of those, and we have applied under Form A, which the deadline was January 21st. The requirements of that was basically to give preliminary documents associated with the grant. There was about 6 documents we had to put together for that. And then Form B deadline is February 17th, and that's actually the submission of our final scope of work in the entire application. So that'll be underway here within a week and a half. And then the next round will be the North Carolina BEAD program. That's the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment that we've talked about before. North Carolina, because of what happened in Western Carolina, realigned some of their deadlines. They had originally planned for the pre-qualification to be due well into the end of last year. They slid that window out to January 8th to give the western counties more time for people to be able to put in their pre-qualification. And then they also moved the pre-qualification deadline to February 3rd, and so we just got through doing that for River Street. So the North Carolina BEAD challenge rebuttals ended on will end on February the 20th. And then the BEAD final determination period will be from February 21st until March 22nd. And that's when NCDIT will work directly with the NTIA program to show them what they have, what they've come up with, and their entire plan for the program, as well as all the companies that are interested in applying. And it's really just a due diligence period. And then once that's set, they'll come back and they'll actually have the launch of the program here in North Carolina. For North Carolina BEAD. So these are running in tandem with each other, which gets a little confusing because we're talking about 3 programs, CAB, RDOF, and Great Grant that have already been tended to. There was a round of CAB that was awarded last year, and then now CAB 2.0, and then BEAD. And so we think at that point in time, from everything we're hearing illustrated, that there will have been enough money provided to fund making sure that broadband service is available to every citizen in the United States. I can't really speak to what's going to happen right now with the BEAD program. You know, there's a lot of restructuring and a lot of searching to make sure that we're spending our federal dollars like we're supposed to be. There has been a bit of discussion about whether or not this will impact BEAD, but as of right now, we think at the most, or at the least, we should see some potential for a lot of overhead that was bogging down the program, regulatory oversight and things like that to be kind of released to make things work a little bit better. Not regulatory oversight, but essentially there were a lot of things within the BEAD program that was preventing, making it easy for people to do things. Like you've got CAMA issues, and you might have a fish or a worm or a turtle or something somewhere that was preventing you from being able to plow on the side of the road. Some of that regulation will be lightened a little bit. A lot of active marketing going on here in Stokes County. These are a few of the marketing campaigns that we're running. Some of these go out on social media. Some of them are mailed out to customers. If we have customers' email addresses, we're sending them notifications about promotions and things like that. We are promoting a gig service now pretty heavily as, you know, the broadband speed of choice. And then here's a few more social media samples that we have that have been out in the world of the internet. I would like to remind any citizens that are watching this that if you visit our website at myriverstreet.net and go to /community/Stokes, or it's right there on the first page of the website. When you hit the page, you scroll down to fiber broadband updates and you choose Stokes County. And it'll take you to an interactive map where you'll be able to see bubbles that represent households in the county and when services are available. The dark green areas illustrate areas where fiber has already passed customers. The yellow areas are areas that are currently actively under construction, and then the light blue areas are the areas that are to come next, that are getting ready to be queued up for construction. You can key in your address, it'll drill you right down to your dot, and it'll let you go ahead and do a pre-qualification order. Basically, that lets our marketing group know that as soon as fiber is ready for you, you want to be on the sign-up list. You can actually go ahead and start an order if you want, and then that order's sitting there letting us know what kind of service that you want at the time it's offered. So that's a very helpful tool that we have available. This is kind of a zoomed in version of that same map that you saw there on the prior screen, illustrating the fibers passing 3,510 locations in the county now. We have 162 that are currently under construction, and then there's another 1,171 that are a part of the build that I told you that we're working diligently on to have complete by the end of this year. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That last chart that showed all that, then what's our definition of being completely done with this as far as numbers or time or however you might want to express it?
So you've heard me say the end of this year, we hope to be finished with the bulk of these projects. Then the CAB 2.0, if we're awarded in the county, then there's a 3-year build timeline on that, and that starts when you go under contract. So then it kind of resets things for all those awarded areas, then they would be 3 years out. And then on the BEAD, that's a whole nother round. So everything that's left in the county that is still considered fundable under BEAD that North Carolina has identified would go into yet another application window. That window is typically a 4-year build time, but if the broadband provider can guarantee that they'll get it built within 3, they get some extra points. And so everybody's shooting really hard for the 3-year build timeline. And that timeline will pick up, if awarded, probably around the end of this year or into the first and second quarter of next year. It just depends on how quickly the state moves through the program. So you could be looking at 26 plus 3 years, 27, 28, 29, so around 29 or 30 before everything that the federal government and the state of North Carolina has identified that needs to be built could be constructed.
Then we're like, we've finished what we started once
Correct.
we do that, right?
Yes, sir.
Other question I have is, I've heard a lot of criticism from the current administration about how BEAD was handled by the previous administration. Several sound bites where they said they hooked up nobody with it. So since it's kind of like a high visibility item, do you see any chance that they may or is it on, maybe on chopping block for any reason, beating
There-
money?
There's always a chance that they could cut portions of it, but that's the part I was speaking to earlier, that I think a lot of it is the regulation that they had that stemmed around the program. I mean, we don't know if they'll cut it or if they'll regenerate it in some capacity. I don't know that I have the answer to that, other than what we're hearing is right now they're just really interested in making sure that there's nothing that's going to prevent companies from being able to move quickly to provide service.
They should be supporters of getting everybody connected, so hopefully, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, cut regulation
sir.
and make it go
That's
faster.
correct.
So I'm just hoping it's not an Elon sites or anything.
I mean, you know, there's always the discussion about his company and his entity and what have you, but we're hoping at the end of the day that if they do anything, they just tweak the program a bit. The real reason, I guess, that, you know, it hasn't gotten off the ground yet is there was a lot of federal regulation that required that previous ARPA money be spent before BEAD money could be spent.
Okay.
And so that CAB 2.0 that you've heard us talk about tonight is actually ARPA funded money. And so that the state of North Carolina has been under a mandate to spend that money before they could launch their BEAD program. And the legislation in North Carolina was very prescribed around making sure that counties had money put into the program. So they had to wait for legislative changes that happened in this last cycle to get the requirement removed that a county had to do a match, because most of the counties couldn't. So when they had CAB 1.0, the last CAB version that was awarded, there were only about 33 counties out of 100 in the state that applied in that program because the counties just didn't have matching dollars. And it was required under legislation for CAB that a county put 10, 15, or 20% into that. So 2.0, they removed that legislation, basically saying that a county doesn't have to give matching funds. Obviously, if a county gives matching funds, it helps progress getting more people connected than what the grant could provide. The maximum grant size in this grant cycle for CAB 2.0 for any county in North Carolina, I believe, is between 3.4 and 3.5 million for the maximum size of the project. If we were to try to connect all the remaining locations in the county, it could be north of $10 million to try to get to them. So this next CAB 2.0 is just going to be another assertion of funds to help get another batch of locations that need to be built broadband.
The other thing I'd say is I signed up for your wireless service a few months ago, and it has worked flawlessly. And the billing process and everything is just really works well, very efficient.
Good, that's good to know. Thank you for that feedback.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one question, he stole it.
You used the term on one of your slides, permitting. What does that involve?
Yes, sir. So when we build and construct along the state's DOT route on the side of the road, and so before we do a build, we have to either get state permission through a permit process through the DOT, potentially county. We've got to get railroad permitting. And then if there's any other special easements that we have to have, we got to get permits for those too. So a lot of times the permitting piece can be really the most time consuming. You can order your materials and have everything ready to construct, but you've got to get those permits finished first. So we usually jump on those right away as soon as we win an award and start working towards that process.
I was afraid that was the answer. Thank you.
I got a question.
You got a question? Okay.
Yes. Are you, is part of what you're doing now involving the wireless part, or is it just fiber?
Well, the wireless is there, and we're serving customers, and we've been adding customers to the wireless network if people are within reach. But our predominant goal right now has been to get this construction moved completely off and finished, and so that the fiber's there. It is essentially, we're underbuilding our wireless network. So every time we plow more fiber, if anybody in that vicinity was covered under the umbrella of wireless, we try to switch them on over to fiber and take them down. So we're kind of cannibalizing our own customers to give them a more superior product.
Okay. Because I know at one point when we talked about this, it was a combination of fiber and wireless, and we talked about that there would be some possibly towers or places you would need to put the wireless. So has that been something that you've had to do, like expand the wireless, or are you primarily looking at
Right,
trying
back,
to do it with fiber?
back then when we were discussing the wireless, we did do some expansion at that time, and we put in some more repeaters to be able to hit customers. But our primary goal at this point is to get the fiber into the customers for the long haul.
Like my road, I don't think they're ever coming down my road with fiber, so
Yeah.
but I was able to get that wireless.
Mhm.
Which works really good.
Mm-hmm. And the Oak Ridge and Pleasant View areas you were referring to, I'm not familiar with either of where those areas are in Stokes County.
You know where Pretty Store is?
Yeah.
That's Pleasant View Church Road.
Pleasant View Church.
Wood Road is off Pleasant View Church Road.
Okay. What about Oak Ridge? Is that the Oak Ridge that's in Rockingham or Guilford? No, that's
So
a
it's
different
across Colonial Funeral Home. That was considered Oak Ridge
Oak Ridge. Okay.
Church. It's called Oak
It's on
Ridge.
704, right, the Oak
I
Ridge.
gotcha. Because I was confusing that with the other Oak Ridge. I gotcha. So,
It's up 704.
okay. Gotcha.
Thanks for coming, Greg.
Certainly. It's
Yes,
always a
good job.
pleasure. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate the update.
Hope y'all get through the weather tomorrow and it's not an event.
You know, I'll stay in Wilkes.
And stay away from flu type A, because I had it in January. It wasn't fun. Y'all take care.
Okay,
Thanks.
you too. Thanks.
Okay, that brings us to our discussion agenda. And Tori's going to do a presentation on Parks and Recreation Steering Committee creation. I thought you was going to give us a 50.
No, I don't have a
slide
presentation. I just wanted to bring it back to the agenda. As you have in your board packet there, in our budget this fiscal year, we were approved in economic development to start the process of putting together a Parks and Rec master plan, and we had a quote from PTRC to do that, and we are moving along with that. Jesse Day from PTRC had came up within the first month that Jeff was here as county manager, and we all met and discussed what we'd like to see out of the project. So they will be helping to develop a parks and outdoor recreation comprehensive plan. The proposed plan will provide the county with a number of valuable outcomes, an opportunity for citizens of Stokes County to share their desires for additional recreation opportunities in their community, a framework of data and information to inform future investments in the county's parks and recreation facilities. And this will also provide a roadmap for making decisions regarding outdoor recreation programs and events, park site investments, greenways and blueway facilities, and other capital investments over the course of years that the plan would be set up for. The PTRC planning methods are based on 4 guiding principles. They endeavor to ensure that the plans are interactive by working closely with the staff and local officials and the community to build consensus. The plans are inclusive by striving to balance a broad array of information, issues, and opinions. They are proactive by using a positive visionary approach, and strategic by focusing on action-oriented outcomes. So the first step of getting this going is to put together a steering committee of residents, and we would like to advertise this on the county website to get some input and some applications for appointment to this steering committee. It would be made up of 9 residents and some county staff, because we feel that Public Works would be beneficial to be on the committee. Jesse Day at PTRC suggested that you might possibly want somebody from the Dan River Basin Association, and I have contacts there that would be willing to help out with planning of river access points along the Dan River that don't meet that 6 to 7 mile distance where we're lacking some river access points. The Dan River Basin Association is going to be helping out with a few different grants and opportunities this year to upgrade some signage. So they are willing to help out with the planning of this plan because it would include our, there's 3 owned river access points. Well, the Moritalk and then the Harts access and then the state park that has the access on Flincham Road, and then of course we have Pitzer access, so there are 3 county-owned river access points. When we receive all of these applications, possibly we would like to start advertising this after this meeting and have the deadline set before your next meeting. And consideration would be best that we try to represent the area by possibly having somebody selected for the committee from Danbury, the Germantown area, the King area, the Lawsonville area, the Pine Hall or Blues Creek area combined, the Pinnacle area, Sandy Ridge, Madison areas, Walnut Cove, and then Westfield, Francisco areas. A good thing about this will be that there will be community surveys that will be mailed out, or be online opportunities for the community to put in information, but there will be community interest meetings in the municipality, in the incorporated areas, and then one in the county areas for input. And these will be advertised. I'm working with Jesse to schedule those dates now, but we will get those dates and locations set, and then once we get the steering committee together, we'll be able to move further with all of that.
Questions?
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good start. I think it's definitely the recreation and the parks situation is growing. There needs to be some oversight, and I like the idea of a committee.
Good with it too. Or is there any chance though, is there any opportunities to partner with Forsyth County on that big park they're building over there?
There could be
It's
potential.
almost in Stokes County.
Yeah, there could be a potential there. I know that I think Eddie had talked with somebody from Duke Energy about the potential to do something different down in that area for another park in Stokes County. So that'll be something that we can definitely bring up to the steering committee and to PTRC. So that'll be a good partnership. I think that Jesse may have even mentioned that somewhere along our talk over the last couple of months. So.
Should be getting close to having that one ready, I think.
Yeah.
It's open.
Yeah,
With it
it
open
is.
already?
I believe it is open.
It is.
I think it opened last week.
Have by internet.
Some exercise, huh?
But the benefit of this master plan too will be for the community groups. It'll outline how parks can be invested in over the course of years, and then the community groups will be able to use this master plan to apply for Part F grants or any grant that would require a master plan, because we don't have that. It checks a box for a grant, and if you don't have that plan, you can't really apply or get considered.
Maybe action tonight.
Well, we need to check all the boxes.
No, you don't need anything else from us tonight, right?
Just want, does it need to be moved to action to a?
Action.
Yeah, if you could just,
Okay.
just create the steering committee
Okay.
and then allow us to advertise.
And I love the way you've got coverage. Make sure we get coverage for the whole county.
Yeah,
Love that.
required but suggested to get.
And if I don't talk to you after the meeting, I need to talk to you tomorrow. I got a suggestion and some input that could be a huge help.
Yeah.
So everybody agree we move this to action?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next is Richard Brim, collection retainer fee for, I've already got a text, by the way.
Okay. Maybe it was a good one. I hope. But here tonight to talk to you about the potential of maybe asking the board to increase the collection retainer fee from 1% of the municipality's levy to 1.75. Talked this over with the manager. He suggested some different ideas, and we polled all 100 counties in North Carolina, 199, because we knew what we did. So we polled 99, and we got 74 responses. And the median percentage that other counties collect is charged for that service is 1.75%. Talked with finance today and got some information for them, and we began collecting for the city of King back in 2010. The other municipalities, they went back into the 1990s, and we have been charging 1% for as long as we could search back. So, and we thought, that during budget time was a good time to make this move. And I do want to apologize on the letter that I sent. I asked for this, but I didn't ask for the effective date. So I've got an amended copy here that asks for this to go in effect July 1 of 2025. But that's all I have. Other than I don't know what the board's preference would be, or maybe Jeff's preference for moving this to action for tonight, or to move it to consent for the next meeting, because this will affect the municipality's budget. So,
Have you talked to any of the towns individually?
yeah,
We have not.
no, we've not.
How much money will it generate by putting it up? You have a ballpark figure in your mind?
Well, if we're using last fiscal year's numbers,
Yeah, so-
we budgeted City of King for 30,000, so that would go up to 52.5, and then Danbury, where most everything in Danbury is tax exempt anyway, their retainer was only $350. That'd go to 613, and the one at Cove was 5,500, and I think that'll go to 9625. But with the upcoming revaluation and the potential values going up, don't know what the rate's going to do, but there's potential for maybe that increasing even more.
Richard, could you comment on the other calculations that we did to try to kind of do a reality check on?
Yes, sir. Jeff, I will say this about Jeff. Jeff, he looks at things very thoroughly, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining, but he makes you think, which is good. I like to think. And had some suggestions on maybe how to go about just looking at different methods to see where everything's stacked up. And I think he come up with a few, and I might have had a couple. And one of them was based on a portion of the tax levy. And when we did that, we took the portion of tax levy, took the county, how much is in each municipality, and multiplied that by our operating budget to provide this service. And another one was where we took the portion of population for the municipality and used that same operating cost to provide the service. And then we took a parcel count and did that. And then we took the levy, the tax levy by a retainer fee, which we're at 1%, and we're asking to bump that to 1.75. And then the last one we did was by per tax bill, how many tax bills are in a municipality. And when we did that, you line it up and you array those five. Actually, King, the city of King, the 1.75 tax levy was actually that median method. So that kind of, reinforces the methodology that was used to do this.
So Richard, does the statute say that the county has to provide the service to the municipalities for the tax collection?
We provide the service of generating the value. We assign the value. They have to use our value. They can assign their own rate, and we can. They don't have to use us. But for this amount right here, for what it would cost them to actually hire somebody, upgrade software systems and things like that, plus the burden that it would put on the taxpayer, because we would not bill City of King or one at Cove or Danbury, then they would have to bill it, and then just be more confusion, in my opinion. And most counties, do this.
I just want to make sure that it's understood that it's not like we're holding them under the gun, so to speak. In other words, we have no other option to do this with. You do have another option to do this with. That's all I got.
I just make one other comment. I like the idea of doing this because, and Jeff and I had a discussion this past week about this a little bit, but I like the idea of fee for service kind of operations where people that are actually getting the service pay the fees, and we were talking about it being kind of important to keep all of our fee structure up to date and relevant, because we need revenue from everywhere we can get it to be able to do these budgets and everything, so this fits right in with doing that, I think.
The only, I'm all for it because you say it's been 1% forever.
Yeah, we went back to 1999.
But-
That's what we saw.
I would like the towns to fuss at us a little bit before we do it. Get their input. Is that stupid or? I mean, we kind of blindside them.
As long as you don't move it to action, that probably happened automatically.
I think the reason we wanted to have the conversation now, whether you decide tonight or not, is to get it out there on everybody's radar, because they're building their budgets right now too, so.
Right. What do y'all want to do?
I'm
Put
gonna
on
vote
action
for
at
it.
the next meeting.
I'm gonna vote for it whether we do it tonight or the next
You
meeting.
want an action next meeting, correct?
It doesn't matter. I think that's more of a question for the manager.
That's what I would do.
I don't think there's a reason we need to be in a hurry.
Okay, all right. So let's put it for action the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Richard.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
Welcome.
Yeah, you should just be able to click it.
Next is Jeff with 2026 operation plan priorities.
Hey, it worked. All right, so this is a follow-up to the conversation we had, 3 weeks ago during our planning retreat on that Thursday and Friday. And the outcomes that came about as a result of those conversations. So I wanted to give you an update. I told you then I'd be coming back to you at this meeting to let you know how it all laid out based on the priorities that you guys agreed to or identified, and the timing that we agreed to, at least in a draft form at those meetings. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the opportunities for improvement that you guys identified as priorities at the retreat. We're going to talk about the revenue neutral tax rate and a concept called the inflation adjusted revenue neutral tax rate and what that looks like based on our current understanding of what the revaluation results look like. And then I'm going to give you an update on the 5-year financial forecast that we showed you during that planning retreat, incorporating all of those priorities that you all identified as a result of that conversation. And then I'd just like to engage you in a conversation about what to do with regard to the 4-cent school capital fund that's been in place for almost 2 decades now, I guess about 10 or 12 years, right? And how to move forward with that in light of this revaluation. All right, so these are the opportunities for improvement that we identified during the retreat as being deserving of at least in a draft format, being included in our 5-year plan that we're developing, and the timing that we agreed to during the retreat as well. I don't know if you want to go through these in detail. I will comment that 2509, about halfway down the page, that third floor DSS building or new construction that we were contemplating, we talked about doing that with debt, and that's the way it's built into the 5-year forecast model that I'm going to show you later. But you may recall during the retreat, we suggested that the price tag might be like $3 million for that project, but the state will fund half of that for us, so that we can take advantage of that and cut that cost to $1.5 million. You also see that on 2510 down below there, I've lined through that $60K operating expenditure. In theory, that was tied to a potential staffing addition as well, but we believe right now we don't know enough about that requirement to know whether or not we're going to need that position, and it's not a position that you guys agreed to. during our conversation during the retreat either. So I lined through that just for clarity. I think everything else here is what we talked about during the retreat. Any questions on this?
I don't know if it's the, in all the other slides as well, as I didn't see the animal shelter
Yeah.
included in there.
The animal shelter was already built into the 5-year model that we showed you at the retreat, the 5-year financial forecast, because the plans are done. It's a decision you've already made. Right now, given the fact that right now the plan is to use debt to pay for that project, we can't take that next step until we get our audit done and back, so we can make that application.
I would like
GC.
to, at some point in time, for all to discuss an option of just paying cash for it.
We can certainly model that for you. And when we get down to the 5-year forecast, it might be an opportunity to take a look at those numbers and see whether or not what the impact of that decision would be.
Yeah, and Jeff, when you model that, if you would include a metric in there about how much the tax has to go up if we pay for it versus financing it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that there's just kind of a give and take on that, right? So you have the upfront cost, you're spending down your fund balance, and you don't want to spend down too much fund balance. You want to stay above your policy minimum of 30%. So you might have a short-term need to increase the tax rate that you can later on in future years you could back off from, because you're not having to make that debt payment. So
I want to make it a priority to get the ground broke very quickly. I'm tired of this was going on before I even came on the Board of Commissioners.
We should be able to do that either way, though.
Well, I think that, but we got to wait for the auditors to clear.
right, we can move faster if we pay for it with cash. Probably by 3 or 4 months by the time we get through the LGC for approval. We can look at that.
Yeah, if you just gather the information for us, and then we all can just discuss it.
And then these are the 5 staffing priorities that we identified in that conversation, and the timing associated with those. You see 3 of them, at least in draft form, would be added in 2026, and 2 would be added in 2027. Now, as was the case for that the DSS building addition or new facility conversation that we had, the DSS director or deputy director position could be paid for 50% by the state as well, and that's not the impact of that is not in the 5-year financial forecast I'm going to show you later, but we can make that update going forward. It's just going to make things slightly better. Any questions? All right. So during our discussion, we also identified a whole bunch of things that we want to evaluate in terms of their value as opportunities for improvement moving forward. And we've taken the opportunity to kind of schedule those out. About half of them are scheduled in 2026, got a few scheduled in 2027, and the remainder in 2028, nothing beyond that at this point. We're going to have to do some reality checking on this with regard to staff capacity to get all this done. So some of the stuff might slip as we move forward, but this is kind of where it sits right now.
So you're going to kick off the evaluation in the fiscal year of 2026. Is that what that means?
That's right.
You're going to start it?
Yep. And then we also had these additional evaluations regarding staffing requests that came from several of our departments. Okay. All right, so we're building our capital improvement plan as well. These were the big ticket elements of that we talked about during the planning retreat a few weeks ago. And at this point, we've made the assumption that these are not going to impact the five-year financial forecast, because we have historically been replacing these pieces of equipment, and right now the assumption is it's baked into our operating costs right now. So give or take more or less, that may or may not be turn out to be true, and we won't really know until we get the budget built, the draft budget built for 2026, and we'll see where we stand. But right now we're assuming that these will not have an impact on that model going forward.
The two ambulances that we ordered because of lead time, are we locked in at a price?
The two that we've spoken for?
Yes.
I don't recall.
You said we were. I think
Yeah.
I think so.
we went ahead and ordered them. We were locked in, I think.
We didn't order. They're just in the pipeline, and we put our name against them. So we have priority. If we say those are ours, then we will be purchasing them. I think you're correct. I think there's a price tag that's tied to that, but I can't say
I
with
hope so.
certainty.
I didn't see any money in the budget for, I mean, we didn't
We have
total for put it into a cost center or anything. I mean,
these two would be in next year's budget.
well, I'm talking about the ones that were in the pipeline that we got a hold on. Is those the ones you're talking about?
Those would be in next year's budget. Yeah.
One thing, Jeff, back to the previous chart before you got to the capital, we're looking at positions we add, but as I assume that we'll be looking at positions we can get rid of too, as we automate and get AI and get new software and all that
Certainly,
kind
if
of
we
stuff.
find
too.
efficiencies, we're always looking for opportunities at the right time.
We've talked about, I think before you got here, but we talked about the possibility of that happening once we updated a lot of our systems and everything.
Okay. All right. So talking about tax rates, and everybody's aware that we're just about complete. I think I think everybody's aware we're just about complete with our revaluation process, and that's a requirement that the state puts on us to do at least once every 4 years. As it stands right now, our real property valuations have gone up by 41% compared to last year. That might, fluctuate up or down 8% based on some of the reconciliation that's going to be going on here in the next month or so. And I think everybody knows that the state requires that when we go through a revaluation process, and before you all decide on what the new tax rate is going to be, we have to communicate what the revenue neutral tax rate is, and the state mandates the procedure that's used to calculate that tax rate. And based on what we know right now, it looks like that revenue neutral tax rate would be 57.33 cents or 57 1/3 cents. That's very precise, but and you can compare that to our current tax rate of 71 cents. That's the combined tax rate, both our general levy and the 4-cent levy that's used for school capital. And we'll have some more conversation on that later on. About 6 years or so ago, some local governments in North Carolina started looking at this revaluation process and say, whoa, wait a minute. You can't just keep on going revenue neutral forever, because the cost of doing business is always going up. You always have inflation. And so if you insist on revenue neutral, at some point you're going to have to start degrading your services, right? So like I said, about 6 years ago, a couple of local governments started calculating this, and they started to catch on with other local governments. I don't know how many are doing it now, but it's certainly more widespread than it was just 3 or 4 years ago. And so we did that calculation as well. And so if you make that that adjustment to the revenue neutral tax rate in light of the inflation that's occurred over the same 4-year period, that suggests that, you know, another way at looking at a possible tax rate is 64 cents. And I guess I would suggest to you that whatever you choose probably ought to be somewhere in that range, you know, so you kind of got bookends here. I talked about why maybe revenue neutral isn't always the right answer. And, you know, maybe the CPI adjusted isn't the right answer either, but it gives you a range to look at. So when we look at all the things that we've identified as priorities and we feed all that stuff into the 5-year financial forecast, and we look at, you know, our desire to maintain a 30% fund balance, and we want to, you know, look at our debt service ratio, and we want to look at our operating margin as metrics. We try to figure out what tax rate keeps us healthy financially, and we suggest that as an opportunity for you to consider.
I can make a comment, but I think also it's got to be tied back to as well something that we've never done here before, to what, you know, with performance measurements.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, you know, especially when we get input from the community, you know, if you don't want the sheriffs, in other words, if they can come out the next day, they don't, you know, they're not going to work the midnight shift, then we can adjust it in. I think, you know, we can take taxes off,
right,
you know, reduce it. But if we have citizens that want to see fire trucks rolling up when their house is on fire at a reasonable amount of time, and then I think that's got to factor in too with our decision of, you know, what's the service level costs and how important is it to the county? Because obviously money is an issue, and you know, there's only so much money, you know, that we're going to have as revenue. So we've got to be as efficient as possible, at the same time prioritize, you know, what the residents, you know, need. That's all I got.
You said it better myself. Thanks. All right, so this is what that updated financial forecast looks like. On the second line down there, you see a suggested property tax rate, 61.5 cents. And I mentioned before that, you know, you've got the revenue neutral and you got the CPI adjusted revenue neutral. It ought to be somewhere in between there. It is somewhere in between there. It's pretty close to the middle. That rectangular box up there, permits and fees and sales and service. Sales and services, we're doing a fairly comprehensive review on all of our fee schedules. Right now we have a whole bunch of different fee schedules, and several of them haven't really been looked at recently, and we haven't had a system in place to review them annually. So what we're working on right now is pulling them all together, making one consolidated fee schedule, so that we can systematically review them every year and bring suggestions back to you for approval on changes moving forward. And so I think because this is going to be new, we're going to have probably several changes that we're going to come back to you with regard to the charges that we think are appropriate for the services that are provided, in line with the comments that Rick made earlier. And so those numbers are going to change. I think they're going to go up. And because they go up, they're going to, you know, there's an opportunity to relieve some of the pressure on the tax rate that's suggested up there. I don't know to what degree yet, but we'll see where that takes us. You see the 5 new FTEs that we showed before, 3 in 26 and 2 in 27. And then I circled there that the debt service in 2029, you see that's a substantial increase going from 28 to 29 on that line, and that's tied to that proposed new elementary school that we've got that placeholder out there for $50 million. That would be paid for with debt or a combination of debt and grant funding, or maybe if there's enough grant funding available, maybe we can get 2 elementary schools, and all those great conversation points that we had a few weeks ago. Any questions
On
on
that
that?
line up there above where it's sales and services, that sales tax, is that what that means, sales and services?
No.
Where's the sales tax at on there?
The sales tax is in intergovernmental revenues.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
What is it we're selling then?
Well, the biggest single component under that line is our ambulance fees.
Oh, okay.
And it's probably the biggest single component that's going to drive some increases here, based on the review we're
Okay, good. Thanks.
doing right now. Any other questions? I don't know why we called that sales and services.
It's okay. I was just
Yeah.
want to make sure I understood what it was.
You're doing good. Keep going.
All right.
The revenues are way under our expenses, aren't they?
Well, they always are. Like I said, you always have this budget to actual variance, right? And so we went back and we looked at our end of year performance over the last 5 years, and we determined that it would be appropriate in this model to assume that moving forward, at the end of the year, we would spend about 86% of what we budgeted, and we were taking revenues at 101% of what was budgeted. And so you get back down to about the fourth line down there, see budget to actual variance, right? And so that corrects it back. And then when you look at the line below that, which I have that rectangle, the top rectangle around, that's what the year-over-year impact is projected to be on our fund balance. And you see in some years we're adding to fund balance, and some years we're taking it away, right? And that's kind of natural. There's always going to be some ebb and flow like that when you've got this thing balanced right. And the result is the impact that you see on our general fund balance percentage, which is about halfway down the page there. Starts out, it was 37.4% in 25, projected to be 36.6 in 26, and then going down to 31.9. So it's kind of trending down there. It's pretty heavily influenced by that school construction debt service, starting at 29. In the out years, it's hard to say how that would balance out. It looks like in 2030 there, if you look at that 2 lines above that, projected revenues over or under expenditures, it's kind of starting to flatten out there again. And when we do debt service on a major project like that, each year the debt service goes down, right? Because it's a level principal payment. So the interest every year goes down. So I'm not sure how that would play out in the out years. We can cross that bridge when we come to it, and then those years pop into our 5-year model. But this suggests that with that tax rate that's suggested here, we're kind of in the ballpark, and I wouldn't at this point I wouldn't hesitate to recommend that tax rate going forward, recognizing that we got a whole budget process to go here for building this year's budget, and that's going to impact all of this as well. So.
Yeah, one other question on that previous chart. You had one other question. How did you project the out years for the school budget on that line item there? 15, 16.
It's just a factor. It's the same. Basically, a CPI growth that's factored into all of our other operating expenses.
It's just CPI. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, looking at a couple other things there. I mean, I mentioned before that we want to, we want to have our operating margin in a kind of a range. 87 to 91 is pretty healthy. 89 to 91 is better. But lower is better because if you're below that range, then you're putting more money away that can fund future capital projects. So it's not necessarily bad to be lower, but certainly in the 89 to 91 range, you're okay, and that looks like it's pretty good for those 5 years that we're looking at. Debt service is a percentage of total expenditures. I think that we'd probably like that to stay below 10%. This modeling suggests we might bump up just over 10% in 2029, but then start to come down again. So, I don't think we need to let that number drive any decisions. We just need to be aware of that pressure, and when we get to that year, we can deal with that.
Don't you see it'll let you go a lot higher than that, though, won't they, if you wanted to?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah,
10%. Yeah, 10%'s healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Real healthy.
So I missed this on the previous slide, but it comes up here again. This model right now incorporates the whole levy. It's the 67-cent general fund levy, right? Plus the 4-cent school construction levy. And it's less than perfect to do it that way because those are in fact two distinct funds. And they have to be two distinct funds because right now we levy them separately. And because we do it that way, it creates a whole bunch of accounting challenges. Money going back and forth because ultimately the bill's got to be paid out of the general fund. So we're passing money back and forth throughout the year, and the accounting is kind of messy, and it's hard to keep straight. The other thing I'd say is that because we're combining those two funds in this look, that fund balance line you're seeing there might be a little bit distorted. In reality, if we separate this out, and we're going to need to do that going forward, but so when we separate this out, we might find that particularly in like 29 and 30, maybe that fund balance is projected, the percentage of fund balance that's projected in those years might slip below 30%. I don't know that for certain yet, but we'll have to figure that out. But these are just forecasts, so like I said, when you have a policy of 30%, that doesn't mean these numbers have to say 30% in all 5 years. The policy applies to the budget year that you're contemplating. So I think it's probably okay, but we'll see how that looks if we do wind up splitting this out, and that's where I'd like to take the conversation next.
If it drops a little bit below, that's just our policy. That's not going to affect any type of bond credit or.
No, that's a very healthy fund balance.
People raising their eyebrows that we're going to be insolvent or something. So I don't put I'm not too worried about.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd say, Jeff, is the reason we broke them out was strictly for transparency. So
yeah.
People could watch that 4 cents and make sure we didn't do anything with it. If we didn't get their approval ahead of time and change it. So as long as we can keep the transparency, I don't really care how we do it personally.
Yeah.
But that's one way that makes it real transparent when it's set in two separate places. So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, so along those lines, kind of two decisions we need to make, or you need to make. One is, do we keep doing business like we have, two separate levies, two separate funds, and obviously that creates greater transparency, as I note there, or do we combine them all as one? We have one levy, it all goes in the general fund, and what you lose there is a transparency. What you gain is some accounting ease. But what you have to do is, at the end of the year, you always have to true it back up to sock away that additional funding and earmark it for future capital expenses with a budget resolution.
How big a deal is that?
Sorry?
How big a deal is that?
Just, the process, or?
The process.
We would just do the calculation at the end of year. You recall in the fund balance policy that you approved a couple of months ago, there's a provision at the end of the year we would do a calculation, and for anything that was over 30%, you could go back and reserve those funds for capital or other actions, right? It's the same thing. So we just do the calculation at the end of the year, and we present you with the opportunity to earmark those excess funds for school capital requirements.
One last question. What would be the impact on the 4-cent model if you combine it? We got a separate model, you know, we run the 4 cents on. So would you just not use that anymore? Would you substitute something for it, or how would you do it?
Thank you. We do. It's the same thing. We did it just be on a rather than those numbers existing in a separate fund. They would exist in an account within the general fund.
That would use the same model that's
Yeah.
been used before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I think I'd love to make things easier for us, but I think that it's for transparency purposes. I would recommend continuing to do things like we have in the past and keep them separate. I don't know if you'll want to make that decision tonight, or
So you're recommending keep it as it is?
yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
It'd be my preference as well.
I agree.
I like if you combine it, it's almost like you're trying to hide something.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what you'll be accused of.
Exactly what you're gonna get accused of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
So how much more work does that give our finance people?
They're used to it.
Tammy didn't roll her eyes, so I think we're good.
I tell you, it tied us in knots when we were building this five-year financial forecast, though, because of tracing the numbers, the money going back and forth, and a lot of chicken and egg stuff there. But we worked through that, and we can continue to work through it. So I think what we'll do is we will figure out how to split that 5-year forecast between two funds, and we'll be bringing that back to you later on as we build this budget.
The one thing that's been a little bit confusing to the public ever since this fund was created has been the fact that when the commissioners at the time decided to do it that way, what happened was it included the Forsyth Tech portion.
Mm-hmm.
And the public generally doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And they think all that money was used for Stokes County public school construction, and it wasn't. And some people know that because they've been told that, but the general public doesn't realize that. And at the time, because I was on the school board when all that happened, we could have built the school, I'll just say this, we could have built the schools that needed to be built, Nancy Reynolds and things that we were doing at the time in Poplar Springs, whatever, without raising taxes. But when the commissioners at the time decided to include the Forsyth Tech building, that's when taxes needed to be raised. And the 4-cent fund was created, and that's fine. I'm not dissing that or anything, but it wasn't just the fault, so to speak, of what needed to be done with Stokes County school construction. But that's never really been made it's public knowledge to the people who want to know about it, that a lot of people don't know about it.
I don't think I would agree that we could have done it without a tax increase, without Forsyth Tech. I did those numbers myself when I came in. It really wasn't even close.
I don't think you would, if you weren't financing the Forsyth Tech piece, it would have been close, I agree. But you definitely wouldn't have needed 4 cents to do what we were doing, because we had those QZAB and we had those bonds that were no interest and things like that. And that's a long ago thing. I'm just saying
We're on the bridge.
it's definitely water under the bridge, but
The total project was like 40-something million, and SciTech was, I think, only 6 of it, right?
that sounds about right.
Yeah,
But
so-
the thing that I get hit with all the time when people get that tax bill, because it's broken out like that on the tax bill, is I don't have any kids in school. Why am I still paying for schools? I mean, I hear that every year. And I did when I was on school board, and I'm doing this position as well. But it's
Well,
and before we created the 4 cents fund, or whenever we decided to have it on the tax bill like that, and Richard may can remember what year that started, 2011. But it's it just gives people a lot of reason to look at that and say, I don't agree with this 4 cents because I don't have kids in school. But whatever.
I bet they can't find another county in the United States that doesn't do exactly the same thing that we're doing, but whether you have kids or
It's
not.
just that
doesn't matter.
it's combined into it like he was talking about, and
Yeah.
there's no separation, which
So it's basically hidden from them.
basically.
it's a Stokes County
So
thing.
that's what I'm saying, every county, you're gonna have the tax rate, and you're gonna have school construction cost
Yeah.
and stuff. They just don't always know they're paying for it because, like you say, it's not separated out. So, showing it on the tax bill separated out does cause some angst with some people, but I'm not saying don't do it, okay? I'm just throwing that out there, that it's, that's probably just
Yeah.
made things a whole lot less clear, but go ahead.
Getting flashbacks.
Yeah, I'm getting flashbacks over here. PTSD.
All right. The next question has to do with this whole revenue neutral thing, right? So, forever, since this fund was established, it's always been a 4-cent fund. But in reality, we have to contemplate what the new tax rate's going to be going forward for this fund as well. And you could keep it at 4 cents, right? And that's necessarily going to create more revenue for future school capital requirements. And in light of the fact that over the last 10 or so years there's been an explosion in construction costs, and that trend is likely to continue more or less going forward as well. You can make an argument that keeping it at 4 cents makes a lot of sense. Alternatively, you could change it to something else, something between the revenue neutral rate and the inflation-adjusted revenue neutral rate, or you could make it fall proportionally the same spot as what was calculated to pay the bill, that 61.5% combined rate, right? You could use that same proportion and mirror that. This is kind of, I say this backwards. So it says, I suggested that option D allows for a slightly lower combined tax rate. Really, it's the other way around. If you keep this fund's tax rate at 4 cents, it's going to put upward pressure on the combined tax rate.
On the 61.
Yeah, the 61.5. Maybe it's 61.75 or something like that. But
Your recommendation is just C, to keep it pretty much, continue to.
I think, I think given as long as it's been set at 4 cents, my recommendation is to keep it at 4 cents, and we'll see how it works when we split out the 5-year forecast and see what kind of pressure it puts on the combined rate. I don't think it'd be a lot. if you think about the revenue, the rate that we suggested, 61.5 cents, right? It was 71. So the suggested combined rate is about 6/7 of the current rate, right? So 6/7 of 4 cents is what, 3.7 or something cents. So it's not the pressure on the overall tax rate isn't going to be huge, but there's going to be an effect there. Maybe it's 0.3 of a penny or something.
I agree with just continuing to dedicate that and see how it goes.
There's no statutory requirement to do any kind of revenue neutral calculation on this fund, right?
There is.
There is, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was thinking, because it's treated really just like the other one.
It's a separate levy, so.
Consider it, you just don't have to do it.
Yeah, you just don't have to. But you have to advertise it. You have to
Well,
advertise
yeah.
it. I'd probably keep it at 4 cents too, I think.
Yeah.
We got a school construction project in 29 on the budget.
Well, you don't know when.
You don't know when something's gonna happen between now and then.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll got the guidance. We'll move forward with that modeling, and that's what you'll see at the next engagement. Okay. Any other questions on that? All right. So these are the same next steps that we shared with you during the planning retreat, minus what was at the top of that list, which is our discussion today. We didn't talk about this during the planning retreat, but we have a little bit of a rub there. You know, the state requires the schools to make their budget request by May 15th, and that doesn't really accommodate this timeline. So we're going to have some conversation with Dr. Rice and his team over there about whether or not they can get that to us a little bit earlier. So
Have in the past, I think.
Yeah, that would be very helpful.
Every year, I think. Hadn't they, Sonia?
Yeah, usually.
When's on the reval, Richard? When are they sending out the notices to people? In March? Do what?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Get your ringer off.
And you're gonna get the values sent out this Wednesday? I thought it was gonna be in March.
Forsyth County already done theirs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it says reval's gonna be completed February 28th, so I didn't say I could send it out before that, but it's completed earlier, huh? Or what?
We're going to send them out on the 7th, like for sign. But with the closing over here, we thought it'd be a good idea to delay that, or we want to have a backlog of phone calls. They have any matter than now.
Oh Lord, don't do that.
So they're coming out this Wednesday?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in the mail.
Valentine's Day.
Ooh,
Okay.
what a present.
I just refer all my phone calls to the guy at the tax office. Look at that, you Rick.
Just hit forward.
Hotline. Get the hotline going.
I guess I should just go back and confirm. Are you, in light of what you've seen now, is there anything about this that you'd like to change?
I didn't see anything I needed to.
This.
Are we gonna, what's the earliest we're gonna do the resident survey? Are we doing it this coming?
We're gonna do it this summer.
Okay.
I've got I've been in contact with a real high quality firm that does this stuff across the country. And I've got a quote, and it's going to require us to pay half of that bill with this year's budget, but we think we've got that in the funds that's in this budget.
You projected 20K to do it, right?
That's the answer I got, remarkably.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
any reason to think that we should move that building inspector planner position up earlier in the budget process from 27. I mean, there is a lot of building going on, that's for sure.
I think what we decided was we wanted to evaluate the inspector versus a planner this year.
Okay.
Also the software too, right? The new software.
Yeah, impacts from
Yeah.
the software, yeah.
The impact.
Well, you can always bring it back to us sooner if it's a need that you
So
see.
we could do it on a cycle thing if there was really a real pressing need.
Did we move, or did you move? Let me rephrase that. The plumbing in the jail, did that get moved out? Cause I thought it was starting. I know it's on there, but I thought it was starting in 27. Or maybe.
I can't remember the start date.
I built these slides based off the notes that I took while we were talking about each of these.
Okay.
So I don't don't get me lying. I don't recall specifically what was said, but that's what my notes said.
Only thing on the next steps, I'd say that half-day meeting for budget might take a little longer. Half-day budget session in mid-May.
Yeah, I think
Been doing about 5 or 6 of them, so I like the idea of doing
my
it all.
suggestion would be to schedule like we did the planning retreat, with schedule 2 half days. And if we don't need the second one, then, or if we just want to hang on, and go late on the first one, we can do that. But
All for doing it, the quicker the better.
Well, I think it's just like what we're going through right now is a good prep, not just,
Yeah.
going to the manager
Be
and
further
say,
along in the process
Yeah.
when we do meet.
Yeah.
the idea is
Good
we're
point.
talking about all the contentious stuff now,
Yeah,
right? So
that helps.
what's left, beyond these decisions is what's in the general operating budget, the things that year over year stuff.
And usually we have a joint meeting with the school board somewhere in there. Usually it's in June, I think, isn't it? When we go over their budget, but I don't know if that's necessary or what you think, but.
Having not seen it or participated, I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. We're going to do something like that. It would be better like the 1st of May than in June.
Yeah, I always thought we kind of did it. Well, it was always, we would have our public hearing on the budget, and then we would have the meeting with the school board. So it was kind of, yeah.
Yeah. You'd think you'd already have it hashed out with the school board before
That.
you do the public hearing on the budget because it's included, so,
Yeah, that's why I thought it was a little backwards.
yeah. Okay.
it's got, it's not really dealing with this, but it's kind of like along the same lines. But so have you thought about any kind of deadlines or when we can expect to maybe get annual reports from the department directors, or a summary or something that
Can we talk about that offline?
yeah. Yeah, but the one thing I'll say online is that I think that it's, we're investing a lot of money in equipment and training and like software. I think that it's time that, going back to your performance measurements, that we we completely understand what's going well and what ain't going so well. And then not to flush anything down the toilet, but to say, okay, what do we need to do, to correct this? But some of the stuff is, and I talked about it last year, and I kind of laid off of it because we were just in a lot of transition with managers and stuff. And is stuff that the community needs to be made aware of, and we need to definitely know. And when it comes back to, like the murders, it comes back to how many overdose deaths a year that we had compared to the years before, and suicides, stuff that are indicators, that are red lights, blue lights, green lights for a community. And I know that in the past I could go through different, like the health department, social service, they're required by the state to do their stuff. But I would just like for us to have the ability to where we can have one simple one page that just quality of life issues or drug over, I hear different reports, our drug overdoses are coming down. But then if you listen carefully, it's, the opioid overdoses are coming down. Well, okay, I'd like to know, I guess that does affect the total. I just want some baselines that I can look at and the community can look at real quick. And the numbers will jump out, whether it's the overdoses, the suicides. If we're having, suicides under the age of 18, in other words, school-age children, that should be shocking.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of, that's just what I want some help in doing.
So, we talked, we've been talking at great length about building our performance measurement system, right? And we've been focusing on our KPIs right now because we're starting with nothing. Eventually, what I want to build is a whole system of data, right? And when we engage you once a year in preparation for starting the planning process, I would suggest it would be in the fall, we would sit down with you for a day and go through all of that data. And if we're smart about determining the data that we want to measure, it should answer most of the questions you have, I think.
That's all I got.
But I would like to have the conversation with you about reports too. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
Any more questions? Good job.
All right. Thank you.
That brings us to the action agenda, and we only have the one item we moved, correct?
Make a motion that we approve the Parks and Recreation Steering Committee creation.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Amber, would you take us into closed session? Excuse me.
To prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of the state or of the United States, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A1, and to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3.
Motion to go into closed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
How about a 5-minute bathroom break? Hear a motion for dismissal?
So moved.
Adjournment?
Motion.
All in favor? Aye.